And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Live picture there at the White House. Well, President Trump standing by National Security Advisor Mike Waltz in relation to now day 3 of this story as the recriminations continue and the story continues. Editor-in-chief of The Atlantic magazine, Jeffrey Goldberg, publishing a follow-up piece today with more of the details that we can all see of this signal chat message that President Trump's national security team used in order to cooperate, conduct, and coordinate strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen. Fox News' Jennifer Griffin with more on this story. Let's listen.
Awesome grace of God that we are not mourning dead pilots right now.
More fallout from the national security text chain set up on Signal to discuss details of future operations to target the Houthis in Yemen. Defense Secretary Hegseth, who was visiting troops in Hawaii, spoke before departing for Guam.
Nobody's texting war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information.
The texts were sent by the Defense Secretary 2 hours before the airstrikes began. At 11:44 a.m. Eastern Time, Hegseth posted, "Weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM. We are a go for mission launch." Then he went on to outline the operation's future timeline. 12:15 Eastern, F-18s launch, first strike package. 14:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. Congressman Krishnamurti quoted from the DoD manual on classified information.
Information shall be classified if its unauthorized disclosure could reasonably be expected to cause describable damage to national security. This includes military plans, weapon systems, or operations.
That's also an accurate quote.
What was shared in the Signal group chat goes beyond war plans because they included the timing of the operations. The Republican head of the Senate Armed Services Committee, Roger Wicker, has called for an investigation and further hearings. Quote, "The information as published recently appears to me to be of such a sensitive nature that based on my knowledge, I would have wanted it classified." Current and former senior defense officials say it was. At the Pentagon, Jennifer Griffin, Fox News.
Jennifer, thanks so much. So the spokesperson there at the Pentagon, who is also traveling with Secretary Hegseth on this tour in Asia, his name, Sean Parnell, put out this statement this morning saying it's no surprise hoax peddlers at the Atlantic have already abandoned their quote-unquote war plans. Claim these additional signal chat messages confirm there were no classified materials or war plans shared. The Secretary was merely updating the group on a plan that was underway and had already been briefed through official channels. The American people see through the Atlantic's pathetic attempts to distract from President Trump's national security agenda here. Also, Secretary Hegseth on the tarmac there in Hawaii before leaving for Guam. Let's listen.
What a beautiful day. It's always a beautiful day when we're on the road talking to the troops and actually in real time reestablishing deterrence. You see, that's what President Trump has charged the Defense Department with doing. Reviving the warrior ethos, rebuilding the military, which we're doing in real time, and reestablishing deterrence. And that's why we're heading out into the Indo-Pacific to talk to our allies and partners and meet with the troops. And anybody that knows me for years and knows President Trump knows how much we love the warriors. That's what it's about. The men and women who serve, who do the tough, difficult, gritty, dirty work that most Americans will never know about, but we have the privilege of seeing and understanding the courage and skill of what they do. I'm going to go see that for the next couple of days. We also have seen it on full display in what's been done to the Houthi terrorists and what they're trying to do to close freedom of navigation. You see, under the Biden administration, we let our troops and our ships and both warships and commercial ships get shot at to no consequence. What does that look like? That looks like weakness. And what President Trump has said is peace through strength is back. We will reestablish deterrence. That's not acceptable. And our ongoing campaign against the Houthis has been devastatingly effective. Now, as I said to this group a couple of times on this trip now, as we move to the Indo-Pacific to do our job, which is what we're here to do, nobody's texting war plans. Well, I noticed this morning, out came something that doesn't look like war plans. And as a matter of fact, they even changed the title to attack plans because they know it's not war plans. There's no units, no locations, no routes, no flight paths, no sources, no methods, no classified information. You know who sees war plans? I see them every single day. I looked at them this morning. I looked at attack plans this morning. You know who does attack plans and war plans? Men like that admiral right there, Paparo, for the Indo-Pacific, or Eric Kurilla, our general in CENTCOM. They do attack plans and war plans, and thank God we have those leaders who do it and do it well, and our enemies know it. My job, as it said atop of that, everybody's seen it now, team update is to provide updates in real time, general updates in real time, keep everybody informed. That's what I did. That's my job. The war fighters will take the fight to the enemy, and I love what they do. And with President Trump's leadership, our enemies are on notice. We will have peace through strength, and we'll keep putting our troops first. Thank you very much. We're heading off
strike plans
to the
before they launched. Mr. Secretary, how do you square what you said with what your messages show? Mr. Secretary, did you share classified information? Mr. Secretary, did you declassify that information before you put it in the chat?
Okay, so Secretary Hegseth there from earlier today not taking questions, but making a statement nonetheless about this story on day 3 of this story. Let's bring into the conversation right now national security analyst and expert and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer, who joins me. Hal, good to see you here. We have to get to a lot, and we're going to do that. We're going to start, though, with this image that we made here at LiveNOW, highlighting one of the exchanges that Hegseth messaged in the group chat on the Signal platform here. I'm going to put this up. I know you can see it. It's a little small, Hal. But I'm going to read it, and I'm going to get you to respond. Because remember what both Sean Parnell at the Pentagon, the spokesperson, and Hegseth said, Hal. They said this: no names, no targets, no locations, no classified info, no war plans. So this is a message from Pete Hegseth in the group with team update with the time now, saying weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. Then at 12:15 Eastern, F-18s launch first strike package. At 13:45 Eastern, trigger-based F-118 first strike window group starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch MQ-9s. At 14:10, more F-18s launch, second strike package. At 14:15, strike drones on target. Hegseth says this is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. And then at 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched there. So Hal, does this strike you as unclassified or classified?
Andrew, I have to tell you, this sort of stuff, if it was coming from within CENTCOM's U.S. Central Command channels, if it was from the task force itself, that would be something I'd expect to see coming through a secret communications, not an unclassified communications. You know, talking about the launch of weapon systems and things. One thing I'm sure some of them are looking at this and, well, it didn't say exactly where they're hitting. The group is called the Houthi PC chat group, or group. So if you're in that group by any means, you know you're talking about the Houthi areas. If you're talking about the Houthi areas, that is a set piece of terrain. It's in Yemen. It's got a lot of high ground where they've set up air defense systems because they can see out a very long way from where that is. So if I'm there and I was, let's say hypothetically, that I'm Russia or China or Iran. If I'm Iran, I'm probably going to I could get a feed from Russia or China because I have arrangements with them to get intelligence. And again, of course, Iran is the #1 backer and supporter. They've been feeding targeting intelligence to the Houthis for forever. They got a ship sitting offshore that's essentially a big intelligence collector out there that feeds them intelligence all the time. So, so if I get this and I'm in Yemen, I'm in the Houthi areas, what could I do with that? Well, I could energize my air defense systems. They could be looking all around. There's only so many places they can hit. It's not like they're going to hit anywhere in the territory.
Okay.
So with that, potentially, yes, that could have resulted in an increased air defense posture, which could have brought down potentially U.S. aircraft, U.S. air crew, something along those lines.
So Hal,
yes.
Jim Himes, the Democrat from Connecticut, he's ranking member on House Intelligence. He said today, we should be so lucky we're not mourning dead pilots. Is that overwrought? Is that hyperbolic? Or would you have made the same assertion?
Well, I would say that there's a military value, and that's a little bit hyperbolic, a little bit overwrought. But that is the end state of this is if they get it, if they take defensive action, and if it results in them hitting an aircraft, yes, that would be the end state. But now, with that said, a couple things. Number one, that is not top secret information. I didn't see anything in that part. What I would consider top secret. I did see it elsewhere under Mike Waltz, but I did not see that under what Hegseth sent out. That is operational security information. And I will mention he is the SecDef, the Secretary of Defense. So technically, he could, in his own mind, declassify it and put this out on an unclassed system because he is the ultimate classification authority within the Defense Department. So he does have that authority to do that. Now, it didn't say routes, okay, so you wouldn't get that type of intelligence. It didn't say targets per se, so you wouldn't have that type of intelligence. Did talk about weapon systems, did talk about timing, did talk about when they launched, did talk about when they were hitting. So that was out there. So there is things that I would say from an intelligence standpoint has great value. And obviously, some of this could have only been gleaned via classified communications. I can't imagine the way he would have known about it.
So I want to focus on this part of this message. At 14:15, he says, this is when the first bombs will definitely drop. At 13:45, he says, target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Now, Barbara Starr, the longtime former Pentagon correspondent for CNN, Hal, she says this: Walls revealed in extraordinary detail when he said there was intel showing the top Houthi missile guy walked into a building. She says you only know that if you have overhead surveillance, communications intercepts, or an operative on the ground. She says it means the U.S. had quote-unquote pattern of life intelligence. What does that mean? And is that what they had, do you think?
Well, that's exactly the point. And this goes to the other part where they said there was no sources and methods. Well, they didn't tell you exactly which source or what methodology, but if you have observation on a building, the girlfriend's building, where you see the target walking into the building, okay, that gets out there. All right, that means that something, it could be an overhead system, it could be an MQ-9 Reaper drone, it could be some other airborne system flying overhead. And here's the other part. It could be other things. In various strike missions, we have had, in some cases, CIA, human intelligence operatives on the ground that have literally eyes on target. They're actually looking at the target, telling you, yes, he just walked into his girlfriend's place or something, intelligence along those lines. That's another thing. It could be a special operations team, which is set up somewhere watching them. There are a lot of different ways that intelligence could have got there. Probably an overhead system, probably exactly what you said. But that does give away a source and a method, because that is real-time data. There's only so many ways you can get real-time intelligence of that specificity, and that would tell them a lot just from that. So when they say there was no compromise of sources and methods, that's probably an overstatement. It wasn't a direct compromise of sources and methods, but there was enough there that you could glean some information regarding sources and methods of how they would have known that.
So, Hal, the line yesterday and today was no classified information was included in these messages from the White House, Pentagon, and elsewhere. But in the intelligence community, it has been reported former intelligence officials, current intelligence officials, say what was included was classified here. So it seems to be the splitting of the hairs here. The language is being parsed. We'll get to that in just a moment. But I wanted to ask you this. What if lower-level employees at the State Department, at the Pentagon, in the intelligence community, what if they had discussed this in a similar forum, the same type of information, if they had access to it? What if it wasn't Pete Hegseth or Mike Waltz or Marco Rubio on this group chat, but low-level airmen, first class, very low-ranking people within the military? What if they were discussing the same information in a similar format? What would happen to them?
They'd be put in handcuffs, taken into a room, and have a very, very tough several hours trying to explain themselves. There really isn't any room on something like that. A friend of mine, retired Marine colonel, worked intelligence for decades. He said, he said today, he goes, if he or I had done something like that, we would have been behind bars before sunset. I mean, it's kind of open and shut. If something that is just, it's a gross error. Let's just put it that way. And certainly we have seen, we've seen bigger things. I think Airman Texera was a bigger thing because he actually released top secret information. I mean, that was very highly classified information with things that were of grave grave damage to national security. But you saw what happened to him. I mean, they put him behind bars, and theoretically, if they really wanted to push it, they could have put him behind bars for life. So it's pretty serious. And so, this was an inadvertent thing. I think the smart thing across the board of all the things I've heard was actually when Mike Waltz went out there and basically said, hey, this, in so many words, this was a big mistake.
Okay.
We shouldn't have done this. And I think he's also said today that he's definitely not going to be using signal chat groups to communicate this type of information in the future. I don't know if he meant that tongue in cheek, but he looked pretty serious when he said it. So this was a big mistake. Now, if I could mention just one thing, and they are going to take a look at this, and I'm not saying there's any politics in Washington where anybody in the White House will point fingers at the Biden administration, but this actually was put out. From what I gather, CISA, which is part of DHS, actually was talking about because of a penetration the Chinese had on iPhones and other cell phones, was saying, hey, use an encrypted, end-to-end encrypted chat system, and they specifically mentioned Signal as their preferred system. And there may have been preloading a Signal on phones, to include government phones. So there was actually direction by the government to use Signal. It's just what they communicated was too far. That was just too much. But there was actually direction to use Signal to do this type of communication. So in all fairness, it didn't come from nowhere. It wasn't some rogue thing they just set up. This was actually something that the government was doing under the Biden administration, and that was due to a specific threat of penetration by Chinese intelligence.
Yeah, and Tulsi Gabbard brought that up today in this hearing before the House Intelligence Committee, alluding to the fact, confirming that, in her words, every government-issued device, phone, does have Signal already downloaded as an app on it. Those were Tulsi Gabbard's words here. Let's get back to the classification question, because I'm learning this. I'm learning each agency within the federal government, they can determine what they think is classified and not. And so things go under classification and declassification review. You heard there my friend Ellie Watson, traveling with Hegseth there from CBS News, asked to no avail, whether or not Hegseth declassified all of this before he put it into the group message here. Now, I want to put this up. Jackie Heinrich has this reporting, Hal. Trump telling her he will ask Hegseth to review whether the contents of the Signal chat should have been classified. Also, she says today, DNI Gabbard testified under oath that information about attack plans by the U.S. or its allies should be classified as top secret. Hegseth has said the contents of the messages, which included launch times and attack sequencing, was not classified. POTUS is now planning to ask Hegseth for a classification review. Trump saying, sure, I'll ask him. I'd certainly ask him to take a look at it. Is that a good idea?
I think that's a very good idea. They should be looking at it. I think Pete Hegseth's in a difficult situation making that determination. because he's actually, under the spotlight as a person who may have, who basically under the spotlight with the accusation that he released what was classified information. Although I will say, and you just brought it up, he is the senior member of that department, and as such, he does have declassification authority. Although, if you have an attack underway, if you have military assets, warplanes actually flying in to do a strike, and you release the information that this is happening while it's happening, that's a pretty grave mistake in terms of operational security. That's putting potentially air crews, U.S. military personnel at risk, at higher risk. So that's pretty unambiguous that you don't put stuff like that out there, because this is an ongoing operation.
Yeah.
That would be kind of like saying, we got a special operations team on the ground and they're going out to take bad guys. Well, there's a special operations team on the ground. You don't let them know that they're out there. As we used to say, if you're running clandestine operations, it's kind of inferred that you want to keep them clandestine. Okay. And so that was a big mistake on his end to say that. But he does have that authority to declassify things, and that may eventually come up within the explanation. Now, I will say Tulsi Gabbard may have misspoke a little bit. The big war plans, and I just say this as someone, hey, I know the top secret. I don't know all of them, but I know there are top secret war plans. All right, I know there's a lot of secret stuff. Everything I saw in there, with maybe Mike Waltz's comment about the girlfriend's house situation, that may have been from a top secret source, but everything else in there that was released were what I would call secret level at most. But I don't think everything needs to be top secret. That takes it up to a higher level. And by the way, and I would say some of those who are saying that this can only be said in the situation room or sensitive compartmented information facility or something like that, again, I think they're over speaking the level of information and discourse there. That literally, everything I saw there, you could literally go into an office in the Pentagon that's not a SCIF and talk about that, because I've seen people do that all the time. They do it in government offices all the time. You just make sure you're out of earshot. You try to keep your cell phones away, put those in another room or something. But I have seen stuff like that spoken about, and that's just where you use common sense. I've seen it on tarmacs of airfields, all sorts of stuff. So it's not quite the level that some of them. There might be as you said, hyperbolic. There might be some hyperbolic rhetoric in terms of the level of classification. But yeah, that's just. I got to tell you, every time I look at this, I go, I'm going to use a military term. It looks really dumb. That you could say this in a Signal chat room. So
Hal, one more thing. I want to put this tweet up from Vice President Vance responding to the newest iteration of the Atlantic story. He says it's very clear Goldberg oversold what he had. But one thing in particular really stands out. Vance says, remember when he was attacking Ratcliffe for blowing the cover for a CIA agent? He says, turns out Ratcliffe was simply naming his chief of staff. Now, from what I understand from the article published today, Goldberg still did not divulge this person's name, but it turned out to be Ratcliffe's chief of staff there at the CIA. Now, why would that name still need to be withheld?
Well, that name, and I don't know who it is off the top of my head, but he might still be an operations officer. He's so senior that if you're the chief of staff of CIA, you're not going to be out there running field operations or probably running undercover operations. Those days are probably behind you. But because of who that person is and because of their background and things that they've done, you would want to keep their name and certainly their face and anything about them out of the news. If, for example, if you release the name of someone who used to be a CIA operations officer, along with their face, Valerie Plame comes to mind. If you remember Vice President Cheney, the chief of staff, released that. Well, this is what for everywhere she's worked in the world, everybody she has talked to now comes under suspicion.
Okay.
So if she was meeting with someone, say in Moscow or something, and all of a sudden they go, wait a minute, so she was a CIA officer? They're going to go back and look at everybody that she talked to, and there could be some pretty dire consequences for anybody that they've dealt with. And actually, we could have active agents out there, and agents, I mean, people who are working for us as sources of intelligence that could be put in harm's way simply because of association with that person whose name is now public. So that's why. And actually, I think Jeffrey Goldberg, he did the right thing. He went to all the different agencies, and CIA came back and said, hey, can you please leave his name out of this? And they did that, and I thought that was a very responsible thing to do that. He did do the right thing in terms of chasing that down to make sure he didn't release something that could cause harm.
Yeah, Jeffrey Goldberg, and he also had a co-author on this latest piece, Shane Harris, who writes for The Atlantic about numerous national security stories and issues. They write this, quote, as a general rule, we do not publish information about military operations if that information could possibly jeopardize the lives of U.S. personnel. That is why we chose to characterize the nature of the information being shared, not specific details about the attacks. They go on to say the statements by Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and Trump, combined with the assertions made by numerous administration officials that we are lying about the content of the signal texts, have led us to believe people should see the texts in order to reach their own conclusions. And that is what everyone has been doing throughout the course of the day.